welcome. It's me, Percita, and this is Percita's Paradox. So here we are. New week, let's talk. Are you an 80%er? When I say, are you an 80%er, what exactly does that bring to mind? Do you think that I'm referring to your effort? Do you think that I'm referring to your way of loving, your way of doing? What exactly does that mean? You know that 100% would be the goal number. So if I'm saying, are you 80% or are you an 80%er, do you understand what that means? Like, does it actually draw something out of you that says, you know what? I am an 80%er, or girl, I have no idea why you would use the number 80 as even your threshold. Well, I'll tell you why. I have ran into a few people throughout my life, some that I'm actually even related to, who have a tendency to do what I like to call self-sabotage themselves. And the way that they do that is by not completely finishing the task. Most of them don't complete tasks because they do not want to deal with what I like to call the expectation of what that would look like. So what they do is just don't give you any idea from their actions what they're capable of. Therefore, you won't really ask them to do anything better or bigger, right? So you might say, well, what exactly does that mean? Let me sit back so I can really get good and excited about it. What it means is an 80%er is really a pretty selfish person. And I say it because they're self-consumed in the premise of they don't want to really do all that they can do because they're really more concerned in just getting by. Like, have you met the person in school and you know that they can do all of the work, but yet and still they have study, they have go to class because they know that even when they have do it, they're still exceeding past the average, right? They're still not the best, but they're exceeding past the average student. Therefore, they can do exactly the way they want to do it and still get by, right? Typically A, B, C type student, sometimes A's, just depending on the course, but they just don't put in the effort. And what I want to discuss deeply today about being an 80%er is just you kind of don't want to put yourself in a position where you really approach anything in life where you don't want to see for yourself what your full 100% would be or what your full potential is. And it's difficult to do that unless you can actually sit and address the fact that you've been functioning as an 80%er. So let's talk about some of the characteristics of this 80%er person that I'm talking about. Well, again, we use school as an analogy. They just are within themselves self-contained. They're typically fearful. And what I mean by fearful is that a person who only gives 80% also has a thing with they don't want to fail. So they want to keep their energy level and their efforts right at a place where they know that they're still in complete control, which is why I say that that person tends to be a little bit more on the selfish side. Or I want to say a little bit more completely on the selfish side because yet again, they're self-sabotaging themselves by staying self-consumed. Therefore, they can never really get to where they want to go, even though they know they're capable. But they've told themselves and inundated themselves with the analogy of they're okay at just this 80% effort. But they're also walking in that fear thing that I just talked about, which does not allow them to step outside of anything that they can't conquer. So typically an 80%er type person only does things that they already know. They're not adventurous. They don't go out and do, not really. When you say adventure, you think typically of skydiving or something fun and crazy like that. But what I mean is like they're not the risk takers that they should be. They're typically frugal. And I don't mean frugal in a good or a bad way. I just mean that they focus a lot more on things that they feel like they can control. Now catch it. If you notice what I just said, that could be a good thing to really only focus on the things that you can control if you are staying in a self-contained world. And since none of us are, and we all have to interact with other people, you can kind of see how keeping yourself on the ability to stay within a learning curve is pretty important, right? Of course. But this person really does follow this line of questions and answers that they find themselves only asking questions even that they feel like they can control. They find themselves typically around the type of person who they either know more or they're just going to Q&A the person to death. And you might say, well, that's one extreme to another. Well, that's what an 80%er would have to be. They would have to have some sense of a balance, but their balance is between fear and effort, meaning they're only going to put forth as much effort as they don't fear. Did you catch that? They're never going to work outside of the box. They're never going to be outside thinkers because they're always asking themselves 50 million questions about their success or about their next move or about what they should or shouldn't be doing. Therefore, they self-sabotage themselves because in order for them to actually do any of those things, they'd have to take the risk. The funny part about an 80%er is I would tell you that most of the world is what I'd like to call the 80%er. It's a very unique bunch of people. And you might say, what is that? It's typically the person who says things like, all I want to do is work to pay my bills. And if I can pay my bills and have a little savings and go on a trip or two here or there, I'm good. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not telling you that there's anything wrong with that logic or with that analogy. But what I am saying to you is that's what the 80%er type person speaks of. Now, what always baffles me about that is that it still seems as if they desire or want more. And I say this because they always have another statement that will kind of come up in conversation that sounds like, well, I could be ba 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 ba, but I choose to do that. Being like, okay, well, I just got my degree, and I'll say, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to go and try to promote to another job? No. I don't want to be anybody's manager. I don't want to manage people. I just basically want to just, find a job that would promote me that I still wouldn't have to be in management. And every time I ask the 80%er type person, what job are you promoting to that would not take you up to a yet another tier? And typically in that tier, there would be some type of managerial position. Now, we all have seen and heard of the jobs that would have like analysts, and analysts typically work by themselves, but they still work within a team, right? And I'm always fascinated by the 80%er because it's like they just don't want to push the envelope. Even though they desire in their heart to really be bigger, they just aren't willing to do it. So now that I've given you a great analogy on what the 80%er is, let's really try to decipher why that is so common. And I promise you that no matter how we want to look back at it and no matter how we want to say to ourselves, well, sometimes Percita 80% is all that you can give because that's the best you got. I'm not saying it is or it isn't, because I think it gets real tricky when you're trying to tell people what they can and can't do. And that's not what I'm here to tell you. But what I am telling you is there is a very thin line between what you can do and what you're willing to do. And I think I talked about it and touched on it before. And if you really catch it, that's really the theme that I'm talking about all of 2020. It's not what you will or won't do. It's what you are willing to do or not willing to do. Will and won't are really two different dynamics, but we put them together. So it becomes like this thing of saying like, well, maybe they're not able. Well, the fact that you're saying maybe they're not able, to me, makes them able, because it's a question of if they're not able. When a person's not able, you know that they're not able, meaning it's some type of a deficit. Either they're financially not available or they're emotionally not available, but they're not available at all. The willing and not able people are not who we're talking about. We're talking about the willing and the able. When you have both dynamics in your perspective and you still don't want to do it, therefore you remain in this 80%, but you continuously play down the 100%ers by saying you could be a 100% person, but you choose to not. I challenge the 80 percentile person. Yeah, that's the way I want to say it. The 80 percentile person to actually ask themselves, why do you give up right before you could actually push through it? Meaning, why is the 80% enough? Why is that where you decide you want to stop? Is it any of the things that I just discussed in this video? Is it fear? Is it self-sabotage? Is it self-loathing? Is it self-destruction? Like, what exactly is it? What makes you say, you know what, I could really try that out and see how well I can do it and push myself past the envelope of where I'm comfortable, which would then take you through the next 20% of whatever that effort is. Or I can just stay right here where I'm nice and comfortable and I have never ever had any issue, and this is where I'm safe and this is what I'm gonna do. The question is, why exactly is that something that you continue to do? Is it something that you want to continue to do? Or are you going to make this change, this new decade, this transition into the new year to actually step outside of the box? I put up something the other day, and it's just basically what exude the energy of saying, like, stop chasing anything but who you are. And in finding who you are, you're going to find all the other attributes of life. Like, I always try to tell my family members, don't focus on money because it makes you an 80%er. Because at some point you'd have to know that the risk of losing the money that you have will hold you back from making additional money because you're not willing to bet on yourself. I'm never asking anyone to bet on anybody but themselves. Like, I'm not about the go and find an investment and invest in it and see if it works. Even stocks. If you're not the type of person that can handle risk, that is definitely not something you want to do. But if you understand that taking a risk on you should be an absolute, meaning that should be something that because it's yours and you're in control of it, you should want to do it, is what I'm discussing. So I think it's very interesting if we really start to analyze what the 80% mindset has done in the past. And you also start to decide, do I really want to stay in this existence? Is this what is my life? And I'm okay with it as an 80%er. And you say that to yourself and you own it. If you can't own it, if you still find like there's something really digging deep in your spirit and it's tugging at you and you continuously feel like you really want more and you don't really know what it is, and you go through a couple of months of you really feeling good about yourself, then out of the blue you might find yourself saying like, you know what, I don't really feel like I like where I am, or like my job, or like this relationship, or whatever it is. You have to know that that is really your spirit speaking back to you, telling you that you're not okay with being an 80%er. I don't think any of us should be okay with being an 80%er. And what I mean by that is that I just believe that we are built to be warriors and to fight, and to really fight for what it is that we're supposed to have and acquire and be with and be around and all of those things. So whenever I see a person tugging at themselves in a self-sabotage, they typically have a bigger goal, a bigger walk, a bigger something, right? They're not really as comfortable as they claim to be. I think it's a cop-out to really just say, you know, you just kind of want to live check to check and be able to live off, you know, in a nomad type scenario. And don't get me wrong, because I'm sure there's going to be some people who go, no, Percita, really, that's it. And some people really do like to live like that. And you're absolutely right, but that is few and far between, and we all know it, okay? So I don't think anyone does not want to live plentiful and in peace and in some sense of wealth and in some sense of love and all of those things to the fullest. So when you say it, you have to understand that an 80%er doesn't really have the mindset to say they want to be something bigger, because again, the expectation, the fear of not being able to achieve anything beyond 80%. Even in a grade scale, 80% is a great grade. And you'll hear someone say like, oh my God, if you made 80% on that test, that's a great grade. I'm not telling you it isn't. I'm just simply challenging you to say that if after all of that has been achieved, you still feel something deep down inside that says there's got to be more, or I'm not really feeling like I fulfilled my goals or my desires in life, you're the people that I'm discussing this with. And that is why I'm stressing it to you to say you have to find a way to get yourself out of that rut. And the best way to get yourself out of that rut is to, one, believe in you. It is very complicated for people to believe in themselves. And a lot of people talk the words. I mean, you know, we're big on like, you know, I don't need nobody and I'm good, and, you know. But typically behind closed doors, that person is struggling. And they're struggling a lot. And they're always in some sense of competition. And they're always finding themselves trying to be comfortable and trying to get validation from others to be comfortable. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of lack of courage of being disliked. There's a beautiful book out, and that is literally the title, The Courage to Be Disliked. I can't remember the author off the top of my head right now, but it's a pretty intriguing book. And in that book, the constant conversation is you have to be okay with people just not being on your side. So even in the 80% to 100% that we're talking about, that 20% is typically the part where people don't want to take the risk of not being liked or being misunderstood or being talked about, or all of the things that I love to call the Instagram attitude of, I don't really care. And I'm going to say it to you again. If you don't care, then you don't need to voice it, because that would be stating the obvious. So if you continuously tell me you don't care, at some point you'd have to know that I know you do care, because there's no reason for you to tell me you don't care if you don't care. You just live. There's no logic in telling someone something like that. It's equivalent to me saying there's no logic in telling me you're leaving social media. Just leave social media. But we don't want to deal with the fact of we fear not being liked, and we all want to have some sense of validity behind our existence. And social media has really taken us to a level where unless we're getting validated on social media, we just don't feel like our real life is good enough anymore. It's turned us all into some narcissist psychopaths. And even when we swear we're not narcissists, we are. Even this YouTube right here, it has narcissist tendencies. Here I am giving you advice to tell you things about your life as if my life is perfect. Catch it. It isn't. I'm just giving you the analogy of what I think I know. And even in that, there's a narcissistic tone. Because who am I to try to tell you anything? And the only way this works for me is for me to be able to say that right back to you, like, hey, boo, I don't really know if any of this will work for you. But what I do know is that this is what I have come into to view and to see. And you agree or you disagree, doesn't matter to me. I'm going to respect you either way. If you put comments underneath my videos and you say you think you know it all, down to if you put comments underneath my video and say I absolutely love them, I'm going to accept it either direction, because I understand that is not the goal. The goal is not for me to validate myself through you or to you. It is simply to expose as much as I can about myself. And the people who need the exposure and who will learn from it and who need to learn from it will. And everyone else, I hope you look at this channel and go, she's fun, she's cool, and she's just giving off her 2 cents, and that's it. It's just my 2 cents. We all should have 2 cents. We all should have some sense of opinion, and we should all respect each other's opinions. But in the exact same manner, we don't have to agree. We do not have to agree. I'm going to say that again. We do not have to agree. But after saying all of that, I'm still telling you that I can only come at you with that type of a mindset because I'm a 100 type person. You might say, what does that mean? I'm going to take the risk. I'm going to put myself out there. I'm going to let you judge me, and I'm going to take the risk. Who are you to judge me? We all fall short. We all have something that we are not proud of. We all have secrets and cobwebs and everything that we're not excited and proud about. We all have moments where we want to, make sure our hair and life is perfect. Hell, I wouldn't even wear my nails short. My change this year, I literally wouldn't wear my nails short because I felt like I had man hands. Look, I'll show you, right? So I would literally not do it. This is the shortest my nails have been since I've had children. And I would only do them this short for children. And I have 3. My youngest is 10. And I would only keep them short because of the fact that I was very conscious of the fact I felt like I had man hands. I have a heavy voice. I've always been self-conscious about it. It's always made me an 80%er growing up. I had man hands. I'm in fitness. I've been in fitness 20 years. I've always been conscious of carrying a lot of muscle because it made me feel like I was manly. And God knows this society is horrible on petite women with a lot of muscle, heavy voice, and man hands. So I would always wear my nails very, very long for a very long time, even before I was in fitness, years before I was in fitness. Okay, we're talking over 30 years. And the irony is this year, this decade, I was like, the hell with it. If I have man hands, I don't. If I want to wear my nails short, I'm going to do it. don't really care anymore on like what someone's analogy or what they want to believe me to be. I have a heavy voice. So what? I'm still feminine. I don't have to worry about all of that. You understand what I'm saying? There's still all of those little things about me that I have to deal with. So I can't imagine what you would be dealing with. And it might be what some people would say, oh, Percita, that's so trivial to you. And I'm not mad that it's trivial to you. Same way you might tell me what your idiosyncrasies are, and I'll say, oh, that's trivial to me. But it still made me remain in 80% because I wouldn't step out of the box. I wouldn't do that other little part of just having the courage to be disliked. That would be my 80 to 100%. It's still an effort. So in saying all of that, I just really want you to step out of the box and do something different. And don't self-sabotage yourself. Don't tell yourself no. Let things tell you no. And even some of those things come back and say, nah, I'm not even going to accept that no. I'm still going to push forward and do something different. I'm still going to make it happen. Many no's could come your way, but don't tell yourself no. Don't start off without even putting in the effort. Don't remain an 80%er just because you are in a fearful place, no matter what it is. Financially, emotionally, relational, educational, geographically, don't do it. Don't do it. So that was my ramble for the day. I hope you had a wonderful time listening to me. I hope that I gave you something to think about. And at the same time, I hope that you will also know that no matter what you're going through, as long as you're doing three things: live life authentic, living life authentic, you will succeed. And success is different for different people, so you are the only gauge of what that success could, should, and will look like. Thank you again, as always, for joining me. I greatly, greatly appreciate your time. Continue to like, share, and comment. Hit the notification button. If you don't know, I typically drop videos early in the morning, but hit the notification button so that you know when they're coming. Make sure that you're letting everyone know that the channel is back. I have some really big announcements coming, so make sure you stay tuned for that. And as always, have a blessed day. Absolutely have a blessed day. And I'll see you Thursday. Bye.